Hey everyone, welcome to Tea and Chocolate. My name is Lauren Spagnolo, and today I have the honor of having, I think it will be an extraordinary human being as I've followed her on social media. Her name is Amie Ichikawa, and she is the founder of Woman to Woman. She resides in the United States on the West Coast. I'm in Canada on the West Coast, and it'll be Amie's opportunity to just enlighten us about her life's journey. And this is a nonprofit organization. She's one of the co-founders of it. And the other co-founder is Tiasha Crossland. And their colleague also is Liz Stroder. So these three women are very instrumental in the human rights of incarcerated women. So we'll break this all down. And so thank you so much for being with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad you finally caught me. Good.
Yeah, well, timing is everything, I say, right?
Mhm.
So, where would you like to start?
Let me see. Where's a good point? How about 2013? That's always a good
Okay, go
starting
for
point
it.
for me. I had just paroled from a 5-year sentence, and I was kind of shell shocked. I was lonely. I really didn't understand what was happening. You're not ever not, I don't think there's any preparation you can take to be mentally ready for the transition, honestly. So I kind of stumbled through for the first couple of years, and it just wasn't working. I was lonely. I really didn't have anybody to talk to. um, and I was in this habit of trying to get people to understand where I was coming from or understand my experience, and it was starting to ruin some relationships. So I made a private Facebook group called We Are Her. That's the digital extension of Woman to
Yeah.
Woman,
Mhm.
and it was just a place for people to communicate, to share resources, and it just grew from there. There's 1,300 women, or maybe 1,400 women in there now that are all formerly incarcerated, um, and it's been a good tool. It's been a good meeting point, and in 2020, towards the end, beginning of 2021, I just realized it's time to make an organization because of the lack of resources. I figured, well, let me just make one. That shouldn't be that difficult. So, um, I processed the paperwork. We did everything, got incorporated, and then, as soon as our paperwork was finalized, that's when the new implementation of new laws started to take place, and um, the makeup of the prison started to change as we started to get transfers from the men's prison in, and the need for peer support and for communication and just somebody to talk to and listen uh, became extremely high. And that's pretty much what we've been doing and focusing on, just making sure that we are like a stand-in for mental health services because it's so limited. That's what we had for. That's what we were focusing on. So um, it's been a lot of it's been an interesting ride. It's been it's been pretty taxing. A lot of it is so dark that I don't really share it with too many people, because it's so depraved that it's kind of hard to believe on some levels. So, and plus, I don't want to freak out people that haven't already been exposed to something that's so dark. So, I try and give the PG-13 versions of most stories whenever possible, um, just for the sake of people's mental health and well-being, because I don't sleep too much, so I don't really want to pass that on to anybody. Um,
Eh,
but
Right now, are you saying that you don't sleep well?
no, not at all. It's when it does come, I definitely take advantage of it, and everybody knows gotta let her sleep because um, it's hard. It's hard when my thoughts, they will not stop racing. And when I know that they're not sleeping, it's really hard for me to relax.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's this sort of uh it's this specific sort of introduction. I think it's that bill, isn't it? SB,
Mhm.
educate me here.
One,
One of,
it's SB 132, which was authored by um, San Francisco's Senator Scott Wiener, and it's actually called the Transgender Respect Agency and Dignity Act. And it sounds great, you know, upon initial hearing, it sounds really good because who would want to deprive someone of respect, agency, and dignity,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
But nobody in prison has respect, agency, and dignity. So to give it to a very small percentage of the population that's been overrun at this point by a large percentage of predatory individuals has created a really huge imbalance uh, within the power structure. It's bad.
What side of the political aisle is that gentleman from?
Oh, he's a Democrat. He's a very far left.
Right. Does this surprise you from that party?
No, not really.
No. Okay. Mm.
Well, unfortunately, you know, it's always been marketed as the party who's for the people, you know, who's
Sure.
definitely going to help us. We're struggling, we're in prison, help. But California is the state in that's got 34 functioning prisons. We have like the most incarcerated people anywhere. We have the
Okay.
world's largest women's prison, the world. Um,
Oh my God. I did not
mhm.
realize that.
The annual budget for the Department of Corrections is $14 billion. Um, $14 billion is a pretty big chunk, and
Mhm.
that's not counting, you know, other funding that they're getting from, you know, there's industry within the prison. You know, they're manufacturing their own glasses, dentures, American flags, um, uniforms. They make everything there, and then they outsource the resources to businesses. So they're making all kinds of money.
Right. So you really see sort of the real ins and outs of how the prison system is being run. Is it also being used? Are women being used for like, I don't know, I wouldn't say experiments, but say,
Oh yes, you
oh,
could
I
definitely
could
say
say that.
experiment.
Okay. Could you expand on that then, please?
Unfortunately, I can. The prisons are like a testing ground zero for human experimentation, for socioeconomic experimenting, medicine, biological experimenting. It's crazy. Um, there's always some medication that they're pressing on everybody. When I was there, it was Lexapro and Neurontin, which is for it's an anti seizure, but they were prescribing them for everything: malaise, headache, I don't know, nerve damage, neuropathy, everything. So the first side effect of that, when it's prescribed for something other than what it was made for, is like a deep brain fog. So those were some dark times. Um, right now, everyone is being encouraged to get on Suboxone, which is a opioid blocker. Um, and if you're going to get into the drug program, they encourage you to get on the Suboxone as well. There's people who never had an opioid addiction problem who are now paroling addicted to an opioid blocker. There was a huge scandal in the United States where this company was trying to get doctors to prescribe it to everybody, and the Department of Justice did a huge investigation, a whole criminal investigation, and um, in order for them to drop that, they had to pay the fine, and it's like $3 or $4 billion, and California got 300 million out of that payment, but they're still pushing it in the prisons. Everybody's on it. Um, I have parents that call me crying, saying, my daughter's a zombie. I don't know what's going on. And then I'll ask around. Sure enough, she's on Suboxone. Um, that's disturbing. Then they just stopped giving forced hysterectomies a couple years ago. There were hundreds of women that were unnecessarily given full hysterectomies, partial hysterectomies, just um, because Dr. Heinrich felt that he was doing the state a favor. Um, they got a settlement. Actually, I have power of attorney over one of the ladies who doesn't have any family, and I'm helping her with her reparations from that. The government, I believe, settled initially like a $7.5 million settlement. I believe it somehow whittled down to about three, and the ladies are receiving $16,000 for their reproductive systems that were unnecessarily taken from them during incarceration. Um, I knew something was wrong when I was there because I couldn't figure out why so many women were going out for procedures for things that it just wasn't adding up. I knew something was wrong, and when that all came out, it was a real shocker.
Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the crime? I'm not asking you what it is, but the crime that you committed, as I'm talking, my brain is just going, and the crimes they're actually imposing on you.
Oh, well, I I don't think that it's a really fair matchup.
Uh-huh.
I don't think anybody should be subjected
Oh,
to that kind of inhumane experimentation. And this wasn't even an experiment. This was just some deranged eugenicist who, uh, wanted to play God. It, it, and the psychological damage that this is doing is it's not. There's nothing they can do to make that heal. There's certain psychological warfare you're exposed to in there that doesn't get better. Our brains are so different. Like I try to express to people before they parole, just get ready because we're wired different. We're different now. Um, there's just things that haven't fallen back into place. Um, and we have to kind of adapt and work around them, or else we're gonna look like weirdos.
so I want to get back to when you left prison. Um, was there, I know that you were looking for a place where, or sorry, people that you wanted to relate with. I can appreciate that. Was there any like friends from your past or family, and are they with you? Like, are they in your life today?
A lot of my friends from before um, just didn't understand. They thought I was very needy. Um,
Wow.
I was super embarrassed. I was really embarrassed because they said, you why are you so needy? Why are you so clingy? What's wrong with you? You've
Hmm.
never been like this before. But um, didn't hit me until after that was said that I hadn't been alone in 5 years. I hadn't been in the dark in 5 years. I hadn't been in the quiet in 5 years. So,
Hmm.
um, and I lived with seven other women for 5 years. So I was lonely. I just wasn't used to doing anything at all, even getting off of my bed without consulting with somebody or talking to somebody or having some form of interaction. So I just felt like I was free falling. There was no I had no support net, not the kind that I needed. I had plenty of support. My family's really supportive. But it just I was different. I was different in my pride. I was super embarrassed and having to ask people constantly, how do you turn this phone on again? Or what is how do you what kind of why do I need another password? It gets embarrassing. And I just kept thinking, if I did 5 years and I'm feeling this way, what's gonna happen to the ladies that did decades? Um, it's gonna be difficult, and I don't want them to feel like this at all. I went into a restaurant and the tabletops were stainless steel. And nobody was prepared for me to have a panic attack. Nobody knows. So I ran outside I couldn't handle it because it looked just like the chow hall. And my
Right.
mom was like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I can't. I'm sorry. I can't." But people think it's funny, they don't, or they're awkward, or they're so, they don't know how to respond, because there is no correct way to respond. It just is what it is. But I didn't want to continue imposing on people that didn't have that experience. Because I realized just wasn't fair. It wasn't going to work. So I had to reach back in and depend on the people who had been through the same thing that could relate.
Yeah. I mean, it really, what it says too about our capacity for empathy and compassion. Right. And just allowing us a time just to pause and just sort of, and to be with you. Now, what do you think people on the outside should know or ought to consider when someone, leaves prison? What's the one thing and who are willing to, who've done their sort of, work in terms of whatever healing of any kind?
Um, the women who work hard, who worked years and years and years on the causative factors, on their, you know, their all of their self-help, every single day of their lives, until it clicked, and they opened the gate for them. These women are coming out, and they're like the pillars of the community in there. And then they come home, and it's this whole big place. It's like they're this little.
Yeah.
And I just wish I could hold them all in a little basket. But the world is moving so much faster than it was when any of us left.
Right.
Even me just doing 5 years, everything is very fast paced. Um, but they're go-getters. These women they built the infrastructure within the community. They're builders, they're resourceful, and they're ready to work. They're going to work 10 times harder than anybody else, because that's how they've been conditioned
Yeah.
to think that they have to. They're but these are normal people. They're not necessarily their paperwork or monsters, like the news would say. Um, there's women that there's doctors in there, there's nurses, there's chemists, there's teachers, there's moms and grandmas, there's regular people, and it could be any of us at any point, because accidents happen, bad things happen to good people sometimes, and women snap. And I just wish people would be a little bit more understanding that this could very well be you one day. Drunk driving is a real common thing, and stuff happens. There's people in there that when I first got there, I thought they were employees. I was like, oh, this must be a staff or an administrator. No, this is the lady who, killed her husband or her mom. That's not it. But you would never guess, you know. It's not always what you think, and nothing is ever really what it seems. So if people would just take into consideration that used to be, that could have been you. But I think it's hard that people they don't care enough to even take that step. But um, I wish they would. It would make I think it would make people take more consideration when they vote, when they pick what legislation they're going to support. They would think about it a little differently if they thought about the fact that these are people. These are still people.
Mm-hmm. You have here, I think I saw this written, 93% of the women are survivors of sexual abuse.
And they're now being forcibly housed with sex offenders,
Yes.
serial rapists, with people that have working penises. I mean,
Yeah. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for sort of like expanding on that a little bit for me. So that way we get some context. So we bring it into a reality, right? Into the, So what you're saying there, you're talking about um, trans, I always get this confused. Trans women. Is that right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
But with respect to trans women, these there are a large number of these people who are definitely not members of the trans community. These are people that are abusing the umbrella to just
Yes,
gain
exactly.
access.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. What do you call
and
them?
this is also, oh man,
Okay.
the, the fellas, because it's such a bad image a horrible reputation that they're creating for the trans woman community that's in the men's prison, thriving and doing great, and um, programming and changing their lives and high functioning and just doing their time. These are not the people that were. This isn't like Laverne Cox, for example. This isn't Orange is the New Black. These are,
For sure.
men with beards and tattoos up to their necks and, rape charges and,
Uh,
um, life sentences for child molestation. These are men who've murdered lesbians. Uh, it's there is no. I asked the state many times, what is a factor that would result in a denial of a transfer? There are none. There are none. The way the law was so artfully written, there is nothing you can say to anyone that isn't deemed discriminatory. You can't deny them for their criminal history, for their physical attributes, for their uh, sexual identity, for their so you're just sending serial rapists that are heterosexual over there. Then um, it's it's very intense. Even seeing it, it's unbelievable. When I went in May, they let me in for an event, and it just my heart just sank because I walked into the prison that I grew that I became a woman in, and it's just being perpetrated. It's like for me, it's like sacred ground. That's where I grew my backbone. It's where I found out I was like worth more than nothing because I had all these women just pumping me up and schooling me all day for years, and they're just desecrating this sacred ground because the women are in a hyper vigilant state that um, is going to do permanent cerebral damage because um, they don't rest even when they do fall asleep. You're not resting. Um, it's taking years off their lives. I can see it. Um, it was it, it it was a good um, reminder for me, a physical, actual, tangible thing to prove to me that I am definitely on the right track, and I have to just keep doing what I'm doing, no matter how unpopular it is. I have to.
it takes a lot of courage.
Or craziness. I don't know. I'm either really brave or a lunatic because it is intense. I didn't realize how controversial women's rights were either. I was very ignorant in that arena. I figured, well, we can vote. We got everything. We got everything we need, right? Oh no, no, um,
Well,
no.
but the past few years has changed dramatically. I mean, you even have, I wouldn't say all feminists, but I don't hear them speaking up either, right? I mean, unless it's someone like, the lady from the UK, Posey Parker, right?
You
Uh,
know, she's the first one. She's the first person when I was at my wit's end because I had asked my peers and the organizations that are,
and
for prison reform and abolitionists, and I was just getting shunned. I was crying and I Googled women that care about women, and Kelly J. King popped up, and I sent her a message, and she responded in 12 hours, less than 12 hours, and she's the one who introduced me to Wolf, the Women's Liberation Front, and they're the ones who filed the lawsuit for us. So,
wow, that's incredible.
right?
That's
I'm telling you,
incredible.
I wouldn't believe this stuff if I wasn't there. But she was so sympathetic. Uh, she called immediately after she read the message, and she said, "Let's get on a podcast right now."
Well,
And I,
she's incredibly sorry. I was just going to say she's incredibly passionate about this.
mm, she is.
Yeah. Um, well, it's hard to differentiate between, I guess, someone like her and yourself, who basically you just want to be treated with respect and dignity, and this is really crossing a boundary. To me, it's hard to fathom. To me, it's like, what sort of mental state are these individuals thinking that it's okay? Like, where do these decisions come from? Because I find, if with all due respect, it's disgusting, straight up.
I think that people were hesitant. They were really kind of afraid when I came forward and said this legislation was written with hate. It's an anti-woman law that
Yeah.
was written with absolutely no consideration to female human life whatsoever. This is predator prioritization written by a woman hater.
Mm.
And people were like, no, he didn't know. Yes, he knows how to read. This is a graduate from a very good Ivy League schools who was fully aware of what he was doing. There was so much intent that was put into this. It was designed to break women because as I read farther and farther and started to study the law, I started, getting sicker and sicker because at one point it says that an individual who transfers anywhere they're housed, their own perception of safety and well-being will be taken into deep consideration. Really? That's interesting. That's crazy. Nobody gets that kind of blue carpet treatment, red carpet treatment, right? Um, when they are housed, they're allowed to pick their bunk mates. What? They can, if they express that they don't feel comfortable in a cell, and these are 8-person cells. This is a 8-person cell, 4 bunk beds. They can clear out the whole room. They can say, I don't want any of these people in here except for her. When I needed a bed move because I was being beaten by my bunkie,
Mhm.
I 6 months. It took 6 months before I could get a bed move, and I had to beg. And I actually had to have a lifer lady that had, a rapport with the housing staff in the unit where I was trying to go. She had to drag me in there and ask the housing staff and vouch for me. And even then, it still took a couple of weeks. And this is after 6 months of being beat up daily. So to know and that these people can just come in and they can get bed moves multiple in a day. You can go from yard to yard. Their job placement is just a lottery. It is what it is. They just give you whatever's open. No, they can choose. They can say, I can only come to work 2 days a week. I really have to study for school. And there's nothing you can say. Um, Nothing. They're and they know. They're fully aware of the privilege that comes with this, and they take full advantage of it. Um, it's it's nothing nice, and I keep trying to express to as many people as I can that this level of erasure, this level of complete indifference, is not something that women out here are going to be prepared for. So we have to stop what's happening in this contained environment because this is just a test run for what's to come in the free world. This is nothing more than a practice run for what they have planned for us. That's just the way they roll things out. Let's test it in this spot first, see what the timeline is. How long is it going to take this one person that's complaining about it to shut up, and then we'll know. We can go ahead and start action in the free world. And I don't want even the women inside. They don't want this to permeate into society. This is so wrong. The things that they have to watch. I just imagine that they're watching themselves disappear, just be erased. And I feel like I'm in a race against time to make sure they don't get completely erased before we can get some legislative action going.
Okay, what do you think that they did? This is going to sound like a gross question because now you've got me thinking again. What do you think they did with like the uteruses that that they
I wouldn't,
you know
well, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that
mm,
they they sold it. And what happens to all the placentas of the women that have babies while incarcerated?
and
Um, I'm sure it gets sold for top dollar, or to whatever, place buys that kind of stuff. Um,
right.
and I mean, there's other weird stuff going on right now. We have some legislation that's in the works that would qualify, that would consider a gay couple as being infertile. Therefore, insurance would have to pay for surrogates if they wanted to have a baby. And where do you think they're going to find a bunch of willing participants with empty wombs that they could incentivize womb usage? Probably in the prison. Um, I'm not going to be surprised if it does happen, but it's California, anything could happen.
It's California. God. So can you give me a couple of specifics as to what um is actually happening? Is it can
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Like
a
the
few months
first big verses. So like women are not say getting things that they are rightfully, I'll say owed. And then this side is getting everything that they want, kind of thing. I'd love to hear the comparisons.
Um, well, healthcare in the prison system is obviously lacking. Um,
Okay.
Nobody's expecting, 5-star treatment, but I have multiple women who are reaching out who desperately need breast reduction. These are women who've got herniated disc, fused vertebra, physical deformities because of the weight of their breast.
Right.
Women who have to use walkers now because
Oh, wow.
the weight of their breast. And
Okay.
all of them that I've spoken to have been denied on the basis that this procedure is considered cosmetic. While breast implants for men are not considered cosmetic, it's considered life saving healthcare. Also, if you're a trans man, you can get a breast reduction. You can get a double mastectomy or a breast reduction. But if you're a woman whose back is broken because your breasts are really heavy and you're in pain, you're just asking for a cosmetic procedure. Um, and to add insult to injury, while I was there, I spoke with a woman who I've been corresponding with, and she, when she was leaving the unit, her neighbor who just got his new breast implant said, "Oh, girl, look, I'm about to get like you. I'm trying to catch up. Look at this. Look at me." And I say he not to be disrespectful to trans women. I say he because he has a penis. And, a lot of them say, don't use female pronouns with me. I'm a man and I'm a man that will beat you like a man. Um, that's what several have said upon in reception. So that whole medical thing is pretty wild. The laser hair removal that they're allowed to get, there's plenty of ladies in there that have hairs on their chinny chin chins that would appreciate some laser hair removal. And it's not something that is accessible. Facial feminization. I'd love some facial feminization. Um, let's see. Adam's apple reduction. That's, and women can't get a crown. They're just going to pull your tooth out. There's women who went in with, you know, beautiful Colgate smiles, and um, they're ashamed to parole because so many teeth have been pulled, because they're not going to salvage the tooth, they're going to pull them. So I'm going to start pushing for extras for them. If any woman's done more than 20 years upon parole, if she wants veneers, you better give it to her. Because if these rapists can parole with a new set of breasts and hairless with new lips, nose, and jawlines, then I believe that my friend should be able to parole with a smile. Um, it's just such a dirty game, and I didn't want to play games, and I didn't think this was a game, but there's no other way to get anything unless, you get in it. And I thought I could just be above board and be forthcoming with all this information, and it would be received like, oh, okay, this makes total sense. But no, it's politics. I didn't think this was going to be polarized either. I really thought this would be a human rights issue that people would all understand,
Yeah.
but it is politically polarized and very much. Um,
It
yeah.
really is hard to believe. I mean, it's just downright misogynistic.
Mhm, mhm. And when when there was a staff who was recently a staff member who was recently arrested on 96 counts of rape and sodomy over a 13-year period, and to think that this is what the population is dealing with on top of the new culture climate in there, who do you ask for help? Where do you There is no help. It When this all started, the initial hopelessness was so heavy. I mean, yeah, I could feel it through the phone. Um, they were feeling so abandoned that one of my really good friends called and said, "You have to like make a hotline or something." I said, "A hotline? Well, who's going to answer the phone? Just give them my cell phone number." And
Mm,
she said, "There's 200 people standing behind me, Amy." And I said, "Well, then you're going to have to write my phone number down 200 times."
mhm.
Um,
Mm, yeah.
and that's just how it's been. And I'll just keep doing it until I get a new assignment or until it's fixed. Um, there's just things that I've softened and learned to do along the way that have been a little more productive. I'm not like screaming or hysterical as much, and a little bit more diplomatic. And I think that's going to be key in getting some relief from this. I just can't be so emotional because I'm so emotionally attached that it's hard to not
Oh,
cry
wow.
all the time. How do I not cry when I'm explaining what's happening? When a 70-year-old woman who I don't even know calls me crying, saying, "I'm scared. They're going to let that man back in this unit, and you know what he's going to do to us. Please help." That's heavy. That's um that's heavy because that could be my mom. That could be her mom or her mom. That could be somebody's grandma. That could be somebody's wife. Um, and I mean, there's days where I just want to go back. There's days where I want to become like some superhero mercenary killer and go in, but um, I just have to not go crazy and be logical and remember that I'm more useful out here than inside. So
Mhm. Um, well, the irony of this whole, as I listen to you as well, it's maybe it's one of your purposes. Maybe it's the support that you received when you were in prison about, you know, um, cultivating a backbone, right? Um, do you think things happen for a reason? I know that's kind of, bit wishy-washy of a question when you reflect back on your life.
I do. I feel that if I'd be dead if I wouldn't have gone to prison. I was just living way too fast, and
Mm.
um, I didn't care about anything, and I didn't care about consequences. I didn't know what those were really anyway. But if I didn't go to prison when I did go to prison, I don't think I'd be here at all. And I needed a timeout. I needed to learn how to be a grown up, and I needed to learn um, how to cherish being a woman, how to understand how special it is,
Mm.
and how to know how how awesome women are. I didn't have the level of respect for my mom or for women or for grown-ups that I do now. I mean, I'm a grown-up now, but you know, um,
Yeah.
I I was just such a punk kid when I went in. Even at 24, I was an idiot. Um, and I just needed to sit down. I needed to be quiet, and I needed to be alone with myself for that period of time because I just been running from whoever I was supposed to be for my whole life. And I know it doesn't sound sane, but I wouldn't change the time that I spent in there. I wouldn't not do it. If I could change it, I wouldn't
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Um, I was curious about this is Women to Women is a also it's a Christian organization, isn't it? Yeah.
We didn't start that way. I mean, we're all Christians, but
Yeah.
I didn't start it with, Jesus as the cornerstone until that kind of happened. When did that happen? A few months ago.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? Duh, maybe nothing's working because we don't have a foundation, a strong enough foundation. Maybe what's stronger than Jesus? Nothing. So I no, this is really what happened. I needed to find a bank. Okay. I needed to open a checking account and no banks would call me back. And I didn't understand why. I thought they were just really busy. So I went into a local branch and I said, "Hi, is the specialist here for a nonprofit check-in today?" And they were like, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Amie from Women to Women." And they were like, "Did we call you?" I said, "No. Am I not allowed to be in here?" And they said, "Well, we can find your business on the internet." And I said, it's probably because you thought the I's were L's. It's I, like Roman numerals." And I
Yeah.
punched it in the keyboard and she was like, "Oh, we'll call you back." And then I went home and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they don't want to bank with us. Well, let me look up Christian banks." And I talked to this credit union and they said, "Well, Amie, what do you believe in?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They said, do you have a list of your beliefs? Do you have your religious statement on your organization's website?" I said, "No, but I can do that." So I did that, and then I ran it by my partners. I said, is this okay? Is this crazy?" And they were like, "Wow, this is great." I said, "Okay, let's do it." So I did it. We have like the best credit union ever that's super supportive, and we all got back in touch with the support system that we leaned on in our darkest hours. And um, if we're going to help people with reentry and we want people to rehabilitate and become whole, let's just give them the whole shebang because I don't want to just like get people jobs. I would love to be able to save your soul at the end of the day too. I'm going to help everybody that needs help. Even it doesn't matter who it is. If anybody comes and asks us for help, if we don't have the resources, I'm going to try and plug you in with whoever does. Um, there was actually some pushback. There was some well-known atheists that didn't want to interview with me anymore and stuff because, "Oh, you're just an idiot evangelist who only cares about Christians." I was like, "Hey, no, I got Muslim friends in there and Wiccans,
Uh,
and I would never deny any of them any assistance that I could offer.
yeah.
I love everybody in there. I love the men in there. I mean, I don't hate them. I'm upset that the state is facilitating for these reoffensive behaviors to continue. I'm not mad at them because a predator is going to do what a predator is going to do. Why is the state facilitating this?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how that was born, really.
It's really, I love the way you've done this. Like you've laid out your values. One of them was, I thought, really, really interesting, where you say in the productivity, daily doing everything we can for the greater good of the kingdom. What does that mean?
um, that's kingdom work. That's to grow the kingdom of God. We have to keep the mind frame that this is what we're doing this for. This is we want everybody to be able to be at the table at the end of the day. We want to see everybody not just in this life but the afterlife. And we want
Yeah.
Even if this isn't true, you know, like I try and think of it or explain it like from a gambler's perspective. Even if this is all just a fantasy, where are you losing out? You know, where's the loss? You could live your life and follow the Lord, and you know, want to do things for the greater good of the kingdom and live a great life. And it's true, and you go to heaven and it's great, or you just die and that's it. Either way, you lived a great life, right? Um, I figure I'm gonna just keep pushing, however it is, because it makes sense, and that's who got me through this whole thing. I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have survived my fighting my case if
Right.
it wasn't for my faith system, because I was fighting life. So um, it was scary. It was the first time I was arrested, and I feel like this is the least I can do out of respect for all the support that I received um, from the Lord, who never left my side. I want to make sure this is accessible to as many people as possible.
Right. 1.2 million women and girls are incarcerated in the United States. I couldn't get the stats really for Canada. I couldn't differentiate, but in any event, what comes up for you when you hear that number?
But so many moms, that so many sisters, that girls that are going to just grow up and go to prison.
Mhm.
Um, it's a horrible cycle. It's a lot of generational issues too.
Right.
More often than not, I met a lot of mother and daughters in the prison at the same time,
Okay.
and it's so hurtful. They're so the I'm not saying I don't want. I'm not like an abolitionist, you know. I know we need prisons. There's just we have to have consequences because that's
For
a
sure.
part of life.
Yeah.
Um, but the way that then there's just a different men and women are inherently different, and it
Mhm.
just doesn't match up. It doesn't match up. Um, there's so many different factors that they don't take into consideration
Yeah.
when they sentence women, you know, and we're one of the only countries I think that doesn't have a like an infanticide law. They don't think about um, postpartum depression. They don't. They other countries take these kind of things into consideration during sentencing, but we don't because women just it's a woman's problem. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, it's quite a side the whole women's rights thing. It's we don't it's not what I thought it was 3 years ago, you know.
Mhm.
um and now I do understand why the I understand from you know the feminist perspective why they go hard and why they're mad, because there's a lot to be mad about.
Right. Would you consider yourself a feminist?
mm, no, um maybe a peopleist. um
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean there's I I will be forever indebted to them for teaching me what misogyny is. Had no idea, for opening my eyes to so many things. But I feel like what I want to talk about is an audience that definitely includes men, because I don't see this getting any better without us being shoulder to shoulder, because this is a full on societal problem that has to be remedied with partnership from both sides, both parties, you know,
Yeah.
everybody.
Right. 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 I'm not much for labels at this point in my life. I'm not really quite sure what I am, but I believe in the human right
Mm-hmm.
and to be fair and to have dignity and all that. So I remember, I think maybe it was last year when I came across you, and I was just sort of horrified, with just the things that were uh, just being done, just what you were describing with me today. So do you experience in prison, is there like racism and all that? Like, is that heavily in, was that heavy in your
It's
experience there?
it's not like it's not like the men's prison. The culture is really different. It's really, really different. The playing field is very even in there. There's not the separation by race or gang or anything like that. Everybody's mixed in together. There's serial killers and drunk drivers living together. Nobody's separated by
All right.
the nature of crime or their level of violence. It's everybody's together, which is completely different from the men's side because they are separated by race, by gang, by crime. um we're not, and it works. It always has. um I felt like we were all just women when I was there. There were other things that were factors in unfairness, but it didn't really come to race. um it was very interesting.
Right, right. When right now there's a real sort of like leftist thing going on in the United States and in Canada, by the way. We have very similar leaders, I think.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm so
I
sorry.
apologize to you as well. Oh God. But let's talk about freedom for a moment. Does that mean something new to you now?
Oh, absolutely. And
Mhm.
my heart just swelled when those truckers in Canada were
Oh,
going
thank
for
you.
the gusto. And actually one of the most important people in my life that really pulled me up and into this is Heather Mason, who's she's taking care of the whole country. I mean, she's doing what I do in California from coast to coast. Um,
Hmm.
and watching, like, I was so excited, watching the Canadians go for it. I was like, this is so exciting. I never knew they were so cool. This is awesome. But I didn't have any respect for freedom until I lost it. And I came home and I realized this is what my grandparents fought for. This is what I'm gonna fight for, because they're trying to take it from us. And I hate to say it, but many people aren't gonna miss it until it's gone. So um
I strongly believe in that. I can't even say it enough. It's not about whether you did this and you did that. Yeah, I mean, I think we're understanding each other here. So, um, go ahead, continue. Sorry.
I just I hold freedom is definitely one of the most important um human rights. It's on the top of my list, um because it's so precious. It's
Oh,
it's it's so special. It's such a need. But honestly, I would have never held it with such reverence if I wouldn't have had it taken.
mhm.
Um, so it's another reason why I appreciate the time I did, because I would have no understanding if it wasn't for that.
Right. I think with these, it seems like I think people are sort of running or sort of going towards the light, like going towards Christianity or whatever it is, whatever your stick is, whether it's spirituality or religion. And because it just doesn't feel right now, there's lots of
Mhm.
beautiful things going on in the world. So, like, we won't negate that. Um, but like for me, it's like I've never had children, and the power of actually breastfeeding, like we're women can't even, they don't feel comfortable enough to breastfeed in public. Whether they don't want to is another matter. But just that, I think it's a small but a really miraculous thing. And when you think of it that way, and you have a certain group of individuals, a small group of individuals who think that they can do that and call it chest feeding, it's biologically incorrect, because your chest does not feed a child, a breast does. Like, just these small things for me, it's like, this is just insanity.
It is, and
It's,
it's all these are sexual paraphilia. That's what I believe. This is all boiling down to sexual fetishes. Because you're watching this person who knows that no nutrients are being provided to a child. we know that they're not feeding that baby. Their doctors know they're not feeding that baby. So what are we doing? We're participating in the exploitation and perversion of this baby, of all people, a baby that is being sexualized because this person's getting off. You're not doing that because you think you're feeding the baby. You know damn well that you're not providing nutrients to the child. And then there's people who are just now lactating because they've always wanted to. What is that? Why would a doctor facilitate that? There is no other anything mentioned in the DSM that they would allow them to do this. You're not going to give a cutter a box of razor blades. You're not going to give a bulimic a barf bag or
Yeah.
an anorexic and a treadmill, but you're going to give someone with this dysphoric, issue pills to make them ooze things from their moobs.
I heard this. Yes.
The medical field is disturbing and disgusting. I think I'd go to a witch doctor before I went to the hospital at this point because I just have no faith in the medical field right now. I'm gonna have to eat herbs and bark because I can't I don't believe anything they say anymore. I can't trust them because everything's
Oh
so
my
money
God.
motivated. Everything is monetized. All they care about is raking in the money from this whole um, social contagion that's taken
Nature.
over.
Right, right. Well, I love your tagline, by the way, which is voice of the voiceless. Um, I hope that I know you're blessed with so many things. I would love to hear something. Can you tell me something that's not really personal, but something that you've done for yourself since you've been out that you do, for self-care or something that you really enjoy doing?
People ask me this a lot.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry. I don't.
no, I never really have a good answer because this has become my whole life. I um
Okay.
I just like I'll just take some time and spend like an hour on the phone with one of my friends, and I justify it in my head because if they were home, we'd be hanging out, having coffee or going for a walk or something, but they're not. So it's not like I'm working because people have said you have to separate this.
Right,
You have
right.
to separate this. But they're my friends. How do I remove myself? They are legitimately my friends.
Well, I don't think that you do. I mean, you'll find your own way. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm.
Well, you know what I do? I do something. I go to the beach. I go to the beach and just
There you go.
stare. I stare for a lot of hours sometimes.
Yeah,
um,
that's a nice thing to do, though.
it
Yeah,
helps because there's some days where I just go into overload and I have to cut it off. I have to shut
yeah.
down and just go to the beach because it's heavy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you can handle it.
I feel like I've been my whole life has been in preparation for this
I was just going to
somehow.
say, you're prepping, and who knows
Mhm.
what's to come. Um,
Right.
can you speak a little bit about your colleagues and
Yes.
how you all work
Um,
together? And
well, I'm kind of the only one who's in the position right now who can do this completely full time because we don't have funding, and I haven't made it any easier for us with my big mouth. But none of us are grant writers. None of us have experience creating organizations from the ground up. So when I say I got to do something, I have to create the form and put it in the system and make the templates. We're doing everything from scratch. So um, I do that. Tiasha has to work full time because she's got to support herself, but she has the very, 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 very difficult job of being my friend. She's the one who makes sure I'm okay, and um, she just knows, like she can feel it. We've been friends for quite some time, and um, if I have a problem, she'll be right behind me before I can even call for help. Um, she defends me, and um, she just never doubts me. Um, the trust is it's just unbelievable. And a little over a year ago, you know, I got this call from Liz, who is the first female life without parole person who one of the governors commuted her sentence, and she was able to parole after over 20 years, almost 25, I think. And she was noticing that there was a lack of resources. She was a member of the secret online group, and she wanted to start an organization. And I said, well, I would definitely give that 2 thumbs down and tell you, you don't want to do that. It's so complicated. Start an LLC, be a consultant. The whole nonprofit game is not what you think it is. And I prayed, and I was like, oh God, please just let her call me back and say she'll jump on. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, she called and she said, this is a lot of stuff to do. I don't think you can do it by yourself. What if I just become a woman to woman? And I was like, yeah, great. So she's the one who made the website. Um,
Oh, well, she did an excellent job. Tell her.
I will. And we're just, I can't imagine life without either one of them.
Oh,
It's, we all three of us just have a different connection with different people, and we connect in different ways, and all three ways are important. Um, and I don't even remember what it was like before Liz got here. Uh, but it feels right, and it feels like it's just moving at the right pace. Some people are like, hurry up, what's going on? It's happening exactly how it's supposed to happen. The bonds are getting deeper, the foundation's getting stronger, and um, it'll happen when it happens. you know uh, I don't want fast money. I've had plenty of that, and it didn't get me anywhere good. And I don't want funding with the strings attached. I don't want us to be obligated to,
right.
um, push things that we don't want to push, or have our strings pulled in directions we don't want to go. Uh, People have said, "Oh, jump on this fellowship, get this grant." No, I don't want to be owned. I'm free now. I'm good. All and every time we need something specifically, it'll show up. Like I'll find a letter I didn't open with a few $100 in it, or somebody will make a donation for the exact amount that we needed for that bill, and it always happens. So
There you go. So I think I can kind of get the idea of, if I said, okay, what dreams do you have? And I know that you have them for women to women and all those that are incarcerated. But what about for yourself? Have you gotten that far yet?
no, I don't. I always think of us. I always think it in
Yeah,
a sense of us, because everything I do is for us. Even when it looks like it's for me, it's definitely for us.
for sure. So I mean, I think ultimately we're here, whether you are spiritually inclined or not, but I think we are in service to each other.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we are. My brother's keeper kind of mindset.
Hmm.
And I feel even more compelled to help the people that don't like me. I want I want to build. I mean, I know that things are going to happen, and we're going to connect, and everything's going to be the way it's supposed to be at some point. And things are going to come full circle, and it's going to be it's going to be a real big healing thing. And I mean, I die to myself every day. Something in me dies, and it hurts, but once once it's gone, it's gone. And then I realized it wasn't good to hang on to that. um just being the humility that comes with this industry is is very humiliating. No, it's really important. It keeps me grounded and it keeps me I think tied to reality and the truth, and keeps me motivated in the right direction, because as soon as I start veering from this place where I'm at right now, things start screwing up. We hit roadblocks and I have to, recalibrate and get back on track. And it does happen a lot, but not as much as it used to. So we're getting our rhythm, and I feel like a grown up most days. So
So, how did you come up with the name, by the way?
the number two was taken. um, uh, I really did want to put an emphasis on the word woman, because at some point I came to the realization that the our downfall is going to happen with something as small as a single word, because it's not small. Because if it wasn't a big deal, then everybody wouldn't be fighting so hard to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to say it not once but twice. And there was a group in prison called G to G, Generation to Generation, and they really loved the founders of that group, and it kind of was a little homage to them too.
Oh, yeah, neat. Can you answer what a woman is?
A woman is an adult human female. I never realized how controversial that was. I wore that shirt
It
to
is.
my first protest, and I thought that wasn't a problem either. And that was a clear, identifier to the opposition. And I just, that was a real eye opener for me too. This word is special. It is very powerful,
Yeah.
and we got to hang on to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see the medical journals bring the word woman back into their sphere.
That was heartbreaking.
Oh, it's craziness. It's
I mean,
absolutely, I don't know who's
about
that.
front hole people and menstruators, and
Oh God.
I was like, I couldn't believe it, because it feels like this is surreal. This isn't really happening. This isn't really happening. They don't hate it that much, do they? Um, yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not even so much, I would say the Buck Angels of the world and Ms. Blair White and Mina Caputo and the rest of hundreds of trans that are genuinely on that journey, or they've detransitioned. This is something else outside of, and this is what I just want to say that, so that we know that we're being respectful.
Oh yeah. I mean, even for people that, I want to sit here and make fun of and pick on, I still don't, I'm not going to do that, because I do genuinely care. I just
Of
would
course.
love for
Yeah.
everybody to receive the mental health services that they need.
But the
Because this
truth is the truth.
yes, and I think that it's very negligent to not ground
Yeah.
medicine in the truth. It's so abusive to
Yeah.
um, to do this to somebody. If I went into I wanted to be an astronaut. My parents didn't send me to the moon when I was 3. Um, there has to be some kind of um, everything has to be based in the truth. If it's not, and not just your truth, my truth,
Yeah,
there's
right.
only one. There's only one. These young
Yeah.
kids that tell me like, well, that's my truth, Amie. And I'm like, well, what is my truth? If only one of us is telling the truth, because the other
Right.
person is lying. One of us is lying, because if we're not agreeing, somebody's wrong, honey.
Yeah.
There aren't multiple versions of the truth. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's a concept we got to bring back too. There's just not, no, there's just one. Um, no variety packs.
Given that there's a high percentage of women that have the background of trauma and sexual abuse, what do you want to see change in the world?
Oh, you know what? I think it's it's not exactly appropriate for me to say because I'm not a man, but somebody's gonna have to acknowledge and initiate the healing process for damaged, the broken men. Um, because those little boys that live inside them that are hurting, that are the unhealed parts of them that cause them to go out and rape women or hate women and hurt them, the where we're not going to get anywhere until that's addressed. um I came to that realization when they started moving people that were allegedly being sexually assaulted from the men's prison to the women's prison, and nothing was being done to remedy the problem that was occurring in the men's institution. That's just like the free world. Nothing is being done to remedy the problem that nobody wants to deal with because it's emasculating, emasculating, it's humiliating. It's well, I don't want to do it. I don't want to hurt their feelings and make them feel worse, but somebody's going to have to do it because they're messed up. And I know, there's been different phases and trends within society that have made this worse, to where men aren't supposed to have too many emotions or cry and stuff, and it's made them healing those broken parts is just not prioritized, and it's not manly, so they don't do it. But then things like, you know, bad stuff happen when we don't fix things, and somehow how we're going to have to destigmatize the fact that there's a lot of men that have been sexually abused.
Mm, yeah,
That's really weird, and I don't know how to really go
no,
into that with anybody, but
right. Is the whole sort of discussion around child trafficking, has that hit you home for you?
oh yeah, I'm really pissed about this. There's a great senator in Northern California, Shannon Grove, who's been pushing a bill, SB 14, for a long time, way longer than she should have to make um, child sex trafficking a serious felony in California, because it's not. Um, and during the Assembly Public Safety Committee meeting, the committee didn't go for it. They like I'm sitting there watching this, like, what planet am I on where a harsher punishment for a repeat child sex offender is not being lauded as, bipartisan wonderful legislation? No, there's already harsh punishment for this crime. Giving them a strike is not going to help the victim in any way. Well, maybe it's going to help the next one, because this one's going to have a strike and have to go to prison for much longer. Or I don't know. It just didn't make any sense, and it created um, a big giant fight here in California, and it actually had to move forward now to the next committee. But anything that has to do with hurting kids, I've always known that something was wrong, because I used to read the back of these milk cartons every morning, and I would wonder, how do these kids just go missing? How do you just lose your kids? This can't happen this frequently. There's something else going on. This is some kind of an industry. These people are being bought and sold, and um, this is an epidemic that nobody wants. People just thought it was crazy when I used to talk about it before, but now with like the Epstein stuff coming out, it's becoming. I don't think it's being addressed as it should be. I don't think people take this as seriously or realize how crazy this is. They're just out of touch. This is a huge problem. Look at the kids. Where are the kids from the border? There's like 35,000 kids that are missing from our southern border. Where are they? what happened? How do you lose 35,000 children? You don't. You do something intentionally with them. There's no way you just misplace that many people. That's impossible. Um, it's 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 crazy.
What's interesting is that we're getting a scope from you, that from the world that you were in, prison, sort of looking out at from that lens. And of course, now that you're out, it's like you had before, during, and then post, and just the different lenses and opinions and awarenesses that you now have.
Mhm. I mean, after spending years inside with women that had actually been bought and sold,
Yes.
people who actually experienced this and survived this, people whose moms sold them. I've seen dark that's so dark, it's darker than dark. So I know that this stuff is real. And I there's a big part of me that cannot be mad at the naysayers or the doubtful at this point, because they haven't experienced pure evil. They've never looked it in the eye. So it's very hard for them to accept that this is happening. So it's all, oh, that's just crazy talk. Um, but I can't spend too much time trying to corrupt them and make them believe. I just have to keep pushing and
Yeah, for
wish
sure.
them the best. I don't. There are people that I definitely know weren't built to comprehend this fully, because it's very, very bad.
Right. Well, the very thing that, like, was it Liz who just think it was written on your website about um her advocating even for menstrual products? So,
You know,
okay, so just the reason why I'm bringing that up, it's like they obviously don't know what a woman is when you can't provide the basics.
there was a time in prison, I think it was like the great feminine hygiene famine of 2010 or something,
Mhm.
where we had nothing.
Nothing.
We had nothing. We were getting, I think, 5 pads and 5 tampons every Monday. What is that supposed to do? What is that going to do for me? Especially when your room all sinks and everybody menstruates at the same time. So that's 8 periods. What are we supposed to do?
I can't believe this. Oh
It
shit.
really happens. It really happens. People think, yeah, you're crazy. But there would be times when I would have to move to another room and I would just have ended my cycle and I would move in the other room and we would all talk and somehow sync up and everybody would start their period. um,
Oh my God. Oh,
it's wild. But there's no toilet paper. There was no pads. There were no tampons. And these are all the lowest quality you can imagine. I'm not asking for, Tampax Pearl or anything, but
for
these
sure.
are these are very, they're probably full of bleach and carcinogens. And probably squirt extra in there before they give them to us. But
Oh
it's not
God.
just the lack of the product, but having to go beg a man to please give
Oh
me a
yeah.
tampon. What do
Right.
you mean? What's wrong with you? You too? What do you got, a big hole or something? What's your problem? Didn't I
Is
just
that how
give
they
you
would respond?
sometimes? Yeah. Um, it's embarrassing. And then we would have to coordinate and everybody would go out at the top of every hour and ask a different staff. I mean, that's why people start hoarding things, because of incidences like this. Because in the beginning, when I first got there, there were trash cans that they would push out every Monday that were full of, product, and
Mhm.
everybody would run, and you could get as many as you wanted, and it was great. And that was over within my first year. Um, within my first year, and I mean, that's so humiliating.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and it's hard to prevent leaking, and it's just not nice at all. People start making their own out of sheets, and you just have to make do with what you have. But it's very dehumanizing.
I'm sorry to hear that. So let me ask you this. We're ending. We're gonna be ending soon. So I want to know if there's anything else that you'd like to share with us tonight. Us, me, the audience. I don't have multiple personalities, so it's me. Oh,
I, it sounds crazy, but I think if everybody could just spend a week in prison, they would really appreciate each other a lot more
mhm,
and move with consideration to the impact everything you do has on other people's lives. Um, it changed me completely to know that when I take a step, it's going to impact 7 other people. And it really kind of, I didn't get to have kids. So um, it helped me kind of become a more well-rounded thinker because I know
for sure.
if I do this could hurt that person. If I do this, that's going to be a win for them, and them. So it just the consideration and the level of respect that people have for each other in prison is wonderful.
Mm,
People aren't tripping off pronouns in prison because it's just a respect issue. Nobody ever asked a question. If somebody feels like a boy, then you call them grandpa. It's just a thing. It was never controversial in there. Ever. So when I saw people struggling out here, I was like, I don't know what's happening. What is wrong? It just, I guess when you have everything taken from you and you're forced to be in a situation to make things work, you'd make it work. And it might get down to that, and it might have to get that bad in order for people to come together and things to really change.
yeah.
Um, I hope not, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it if that's the point it gets to. But if people would just be a little bit more thoughtful, slow down just a little bit, it would be wonderful.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I wish you and your colleagues all the very best as you keep moving forward in your lives. And you know what? Continued success to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been a real honor to speak with you this evening. And um, you know, you'll be in my prayers too. That's for sure.
Thank you. Likewise. Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. If you want to check Amy's website out, it's Woman to Woman, and the two part is the numerical 2, II, so woman2woman.org. And you'll find out all sorts of information. Read their values, their mission statement, and you know, if you want to make a donation. And I think it's really important to widen our perspective and to understand what the ramifications and the consequences are, not even, you know, in our everyday life, but how it affects perhaps these blessed women in prison right now. All right, take good care of yourselves, and thank you so much.